Mirrors. Mirrors are useful objects that can be really complex. I like filming with mirrors because it provides a cool illusion as to what is the real image and what is the mirror image. As light hits a mirror, the photons will bounce off of it like a ball hitting a wall. The only difference is that the ball loses speed after it hits the wall, but the photons don't. They just perfectly reflect. I guess I shouldn't compare it to a ball hitting a wall because the photons don't actually bounce off of the mirror. Instead, they're absorbed by the atoms that make up the mirror, and for a second, those atoms gain a bit of extra energy. So to stabilize themselves, they release another photon at the same wavelength as what hit them. That aside, let's examine how mirrors work.
So here we go. Let's say we have an object. Object O. There it is. And I'm going to draw a mirror out here, just like that. And so this side, this squiggly line side, is going to be the side that doesn't reflect light, because most mirrors just are one-sided. Okay, now let's say that a light ray comes at the mirror like that. Well, if it comes straight on, it's just going to bounce straight off. And I'm going to draw all the reflected rays in blue. So now let's say that we get another one, and it goes like this, and it hits that bottom part. Alright, so now the reflected ray is going to come this way. Alright, ish, kind of. And the way that we know where it's going to go based on, how things reflect, is that if we draw a little dotted line here, this line's perpendicular to the mirror, and the angle here is the same as the angle here. So that's pretty neat. Now, let's say that we take these reflected lines, so the blue ones, and let's draw them backwards. I'm going to draw them dotted behind the mirror, because behind the mirror, there's nothing. So this is just kind of theoretical here. And so as I dot my lines backwards, you'll notice that they meet up at a point, okay? And that point is point I, or the image. And because these light rays that were reflected converge behind the mirror, we say that point I is a virtual image. So how does this, you might be kind of confused, so let me clear something up. And I also need to make sure that my paper is in frame. Let's say I have object O again, and down here I have someone's eye, okay? Now this is a real world example, because we see things in mirrors with our eyes. I'm gonna have a really big mirror, just so it's cool. Alright, so let's say our eyes. I'm gonna work backwards because, as you can see, let me get the blue here, the eye can only accept images, it can only see, rays that are close enough together, and so that was probably a really bad drawing, but this is the principle of the thing. So, these two rays that are really close together, they just bounce off, and our eye sees them. And so, if I drew it perfectly, you would be able to see that extending these rays beyond the mirror, they will converge across. I did that pretty terribly, but it should converge across somewhere about here. And so, this is, okay, we know it's I, if this is O. And so, you'll see that whenever we look in the mirror, okay, ignoring what's behind the mirror, because again, that's virtual, that's just what happens, it bounces off. But what we perceive is that object O is just, in the mirror world, inside, right? Back that way. If you look in the mirror, you can just see this. And so I think it's really cool that you can put this on paper, and then you can use a little bit of geometry to prove that this distance, say x, is the same as this distance. So you're seeing object O as far back into the mirror as object O is in front of the mirror. And that is really interesting. Okay, we've looked at how a point can be reflected off of a mirror, but what about an object? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw, maybe an iPhone. So here's the power button on the side, and that's the extent of my drawing. Now I'm going to draw the mirror, here, let me draw an eyeball. There's our eyeball. Alright, and here's the mirror. It's gonna go this way. And then we have that's the bottom of the iPhone. Here's the top of the iPhone. Let's draw our virtual image over here. So we extend these lines backwards. Well, I drew this very terribly, but we will go here, just like that. Okay, so now we have a virtual image here, which is what our eye sees, but if you notice, the top line, which is just above the power button, comes this way, and then the reflected line goes backwards up this way. Let me draw this dotted line a little straighter, and you'll notice that the power button here is then moved over to right here. I'm going to draw it really bold, that the image of the phone, so the power button here is on the right, the power button here is on the left. And that's why, if you have like a t-shirt with words on it and you're looking in the mirror, the words are backwards.
This is all really complicated, so let's talk about something fun. You know what's fun about mirrors? Mirror mazes. Mirror mazes are pretty cool because you can get lost in them really easily. Let's look at a diagram of a mirror maze.
Each triangle is numbered so it'll be clearer later on, and it's a top-down view. So point A is where you are, and point B is where you're looking. So the arrows represent the path that light travels to take to you, and keep in mind that every wall is a mirror, every outside wall, that is. And so most mirror mazes are just dark and dimly lit anyway, so seeing things is already a challenge. But if we say point B is here and we're looking at this wall right here, we're going to perceive point B. But the way that we see it is pretty cool. Let's talk about the path that you see. So we just trace this blue line backwards. So we see triangle 1, triangle 2, and then we see triangle 2 again. Now, in real mirror mazes, they don't number the tiles. It's usually black and white tiles or something, or just a plain floor that you can't tell what the floor is, but we're doing this for visualize. So you see 1, 2, and then 2 again, and then 3. And so if you draw that out, you actually see this. 1, 2, 2 again, and then 3. And so you think that there's, hey, I can walk this way and get to point B from point A, but really, you can't. So, let's take a look at a second example. This one is a little crazy. Let me bring it in frame here. So this example, you are at point A, and so if we trace these arrows back, if you look, no, actually, I drew the arrows backwards. So let's say that you look this way. Well, okay, you're looking and then you're bouncing off of this mirror here. You go straight across, bounce off of this mirror here, bounce off of that bottom mirror, bounce off of this top mirror, and then it comes back to you. It's a loop. And so if we then map it out, and I apologize, my drawing is off by 1, you think that there's a hallway. And since, okay, you would basically be looking at yourself, because it's a loop. But since they're dimly lit, you can't tell that you are at the end of that hallway. Sometimes you can, and then you're like, oh, it's a mirror. So if you're ever in a mirror maze and you see what looks like a person, stop and think, hey, that person might be me. But this is a cool way that mirrors can completely distort your field of view. You want to know what's crazier than a mirror maze? A spherical mirror. There are 2 different types of curved or spherical mirrors. There's concave and convex. We're going to be talking about the former, concave. So you can think of concave as like a cave that caves in, it goes in. So we're going to draw our mirror curved inwards, just like that. And so this is the reflecting surface. So let's say we have 2 arrows of light, beams of light, and they hit right there. Well, since it's curved inwards, they're going to go in. You can picture it as like bouncing a ball off of a curved surface. It kind of goes, you know, in. You get the picture. So wherever these 2 reflected rays meet, they meet at a point, and we call that point the focus, or the focal point. Now, at the focus, the focus creates a real image where light rays meet. Unlike a virtual image where light rays converge to a virtual point that would be behind the mirror, a real image is where the light rays that are reflected converge to a point in front of the mirror. So let's take an object. How about an arrow? And we're going to draw two different scenarios. Another thing to note is that the focus is along a line that goes to the center of that mirror. So we'll draw our line, and let's put the focus out here because I'm going to draw my arrow, and I'm going to draw it in front of that focus point. Alright, so now beams of light are going to come from the top here, and let's say that there's two, and they go like this. Well, whenever they're reflected, this one is going to go this way, I believe. Let me double check. Yes, I'm not a very good artist. These two lines just never meet, those reflected lines. What the heck? I mean, they're supposed to, right? Well, not always. So let's go ahead and draw a line back. And so wherever these two meet from here, so this one goes up this way, and then if I can draw this one straight, it goes up like this. They'll meet, if I'm more accurate, they'll meet somewhere up there. And so here's our virtual ground, and then here's the top of our arrow. What? The arrow is like taller. What in the world? That's cool. Now let's look at the second one, okay? So here's our curved mirror, and then I'll put the focus here. So-ish, and then this one's gonna reflect like this. And would you look at that? They converge. Bingo. So we kind of know that, hey, if it's in front of the focus, it's gonna make a virtual image. And if it's behind, it's gonna make a real image. But let's look at this. How do we see it? Does the arrow go like this? No, it's not. It's gonna go like this, because now it's below that horizontal. And so the arrow is upside down. Boom, crazy. We can prove this in my kitchen. Although I'm not in my kitchen, I got this from my kitchen. And there's a lot of extra lights here, but maybe... So if you hold the spoon really far away from you, you are gonna look upside down. So take my word for it, the lamp here in the reflection is upside down. And then as you move closer, now this spoon you might have to get so close, so the lamp gets more and more distorted, probably because I'm making it weird. But you have to be like right here for it to work. But you'll see that the image flips and then gets right side up and bigger, which is exactly what's happening here. And so that moment where the image flips is where it's at the focal point. And interestingly, let's say the object was right on the focal point, so here is our arrow. So they are going to bounce off maybe like this and maybe like this. So they're parallel forever going this way, and then if you draw them backwards, they won't meet ever. And so it's like in infinity. It's really cool. Alright, convex mirrors, they're pretty similar, so it's curved outwards. I'll just draw the two parallel rays, and then this time they get bounced this way. And so then they converge to make a focus behind the mirror. And so it's kind of just like the opposite of the concave mirror, but yeah. I don't have much time to talk about the rest of this, so I have one more question. How do eyes see? I'm gonna put it really simply. The incoming light creates a focal point in the back of the eye, and then an inverted image is obtained by the optic nerve. So since that focal point in our eyes is in front of the surface that was reflected by light, I guess you can say that the images that we see are most definitely real images, not virtual. Well, that's all I have about mirrors. I would highly encourage you to look up how they're used in different things like telescopes and microscopes and stuff like that, because it's all really fascinating.
And as always,
Thanks for watching.